Each month for the last few months I've been talking about a paragraph of Nāṉ Ār, Who Am I? So this month it's the 6th paragraph, which is a very long and important paragraph, and because it's quite fortuitous that it falls this month, because I think because there's so much in it, it's good to split it into two. So what I've handed out today is the first half, and then possibly either this afternoon or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, we can do the second half. So I'll now start with the first half. In the first sentence, Bhagavan says, Nāṇ eṉṇum vicāraṇaiyiṇāl-ē-y-ē maṉam aḍaṅgum. Only by the investigation who am I will the mind cease. The verb he uses for cease is aḍaṅgum, which can mean cease, stop, subside, or disappear forever. In this case, it is obviously referring to, he's talking about permanent cessation, not just temporary cessation, because when we get tired every night, our mind subsides in sleep. That is not the subsidence that he's talking about here. He's talking about the permanent subsidence. So to achieve the permanent subsidence of the mind, otherwise called mananasa, the destruction of the mind, it's possible only by the investigation, who am I? And Bhagavan puts a lot of stress here. In Tamil, the letter A has an intensifying effect if it's added on the end of a word, and here he's added it twice. Vicāraṇaiyiṇāl means by vichara, by investigation. Vicāraṇaiyiṇāl-ē-y-ē, twice he puts the stress there, so that's a very emphatic, only by the investigation, who am I? That means there's no other means for the mind to subside permanently. The reason for that is, so long as the mind is looking outwards, attending to anything other than itself, that sustains its seeming existence. The nature of the mind, or ego, is to rise, stand, and thrive by attending to things other than itself. And if it turns its attention back on itself, it subsides back into its source. So this is the only way to bring about the permanent subsidence of the mind. And another reason is, what is the mind or ego? But here he's using mind in the sense of ego. It's nothing but a wrong awareness of ourself. Instead of being aware of ourselves just as I am, we're aware of ourselves as I am this body, I'm a person, I'm Michael, I'm whatever. We along with the pure awareness, the pure satchit awareness of our being, I am, we mix adjuncts, upadis. And that mixed self-awareness is what is called mind or ego. So because the ego is an erroneous awareness of ourself, or a false knowledge of ourself, it can be destroyed only by correct awareness of ourself. So to be aware of ourselves as we actually are, we have to turn our attention within. That is the implication of this sentence, and this is something that Bhagavan says in a number of sentences in Nāṉ Ār and repeatedly throughout his teachings. All other types of spiritual practice can purify the mind and can take one to a certain extent, but ultimately the outward-facing mind has to turn within. All other types of spiritual practice entail attending to something other than oneself. Whereas to bring about the final destruction of the mind has to turn back 180 degrees, so to speak, to face itself alone. Then in the second sentence he says, Nāṉ Ār eṉṇum niṇaivu, maṭṛa niṇaivugaḻai, y-ellām, aṛittu-p, piṇañ sudum taḍi-pōl, muḍivil, tāṉ-um, aṛiyum. That means the thought, who am I, destroying all other thoughts, will itself in the end be destroyed like a corpse burning stick. What he means by the thought who am I, Nāṉ Ār eṉṉum niṉaivu, is the attentiveness with which we investigate ourselves. It isn't literally a thought in the usual sense of a thought, because a thought is the attention that we pay to things other than ourselves. But because thought is attention to something other than ourselves, Bhagavan metaphorically refers to attention to ourselves as a thought, the thought who am I. In other words, the attention with which we attend to ourselves, the eagerness with which we try to see who or what we are. That is what he means by the thought who am I. So the thought who am I, destroying all other thoughts. That is, other thoughts arise only when we allow our attention to go within, go outwards. When we turn our attention within to attend to ourselves alone, that will slowly weaken the vishaya vasanas, the inclination or propensity or tendency we have to be going outwards to attend to other things, the liking we have to experience things other than ourselves. That will slowly be worn away. So in that way it will destroy all other thoughts, and in the end it itself will be destroyed, because what self-investigation is, we are always self-aware. There's never a moment when we're not self-aware, but most of the time we're more interested in being aware of other things. So though we're always self-aware, we are generally, in the waking and dream states, negligently self-aware. We overlook our self-awareness because we take more interest in other things. So what self-investigation is, Atma-vichara, what it is instead of being negligently self-aware as we usually are, is being attentively self-aware. So it's that what he refers to here as the thought who am I, and what he referred to in the previous sentence as the investigation who am I, is the state of being attentively self-aware. Attention is a function of the mind or ego, because attention is a selective use of our awareness. There are so many phenomena all around us. We can look at the windows, we can look at the lights, we can look at the floor, we can look at Bhagavan's picture. So many things we can focus our awareness on whatever we want. That focusing of our awareness is what is called attention. So it's only when there are multiple things that attention is possible. We can't attend to ourselves in sleep, because there's nothing else for us to be aware of. We are just naturally self-aware. So also in the state of jnana, in the real state of self-knowledge, there's no self-attention as such, because pure self-awareness is our real nature. There's no need to focus our awareness on ourselves, because there's nothing other than ourselves to be aware, for us to be aware of. But while we're practicing vichara, there are so many other things we could be aware of, but we are focusing our awareness on ourselves. That focusing of awareness is the attentiveness. So when Bhagavan says the thought who am I will itself be destroyed, he means it will no longer be a state of attentiveness, it will no longer be a state of effort. The effort will subside, and what will remain is our natural state of pure, ever undiminished self-awareness. So that's what Bhagavan means by destroyed. And then for that he gives an analogy. He says like a corpse burning stick. That is when in India people are usually, dead bodies are usually cremated on an open pyre. Wood and cow dung is stacked up, the body is laid on top of it, and that is lit. To ensure that the body is fully burnt, someone with a stick will be, when the fire is going down, they'll be stirring the embers and making sure the body gets completely burnt. And that stick which is used for that purpose will catch fire in the process. So eventually it will just be thrown in the fire, and it will get burnt with the fire, and then the whole fire will be extinguished. So that's the analogy Bhagavan gives here. That thought, who am I? That is that attentiveness with which we turn with which we turn within, the eagerness to know who am I, that will destroy all other inclination to be aware of anything else, and in the end that itself will be destroyed. All other thoughts arise because of what are called Vishaya vasanas. Vishaya means phenomena, vasana means an inclination or liking. So Vishaya vasana means a liking to be aware of phenomena. Sometimes the love to be aware of ourself alone is called satvasana. That means the vasana, the liking or inclination just to be. So that satvasana is what gives rise to this thought, who am I? The eagerness to attend to ourselves, the attentiveness with which we attend to ourselves. So that satvasana will destroy all other vasanas and will itself in the end be destroyed. Because when there's nothing else for us to attend to, there can be no vasanas at all. There's no one to have any vasanas, because all that exists is our real nature, which is pure self-awareness, what is referred to in the Upanishads as prajnanam, when it's said prajnanam Brahman. The real Brahman, our real nature, is nothing but prajnana, pure awareness. Then in the third sentence, Bhagavan says, piṟa eṇṇaṅgaḻ eṛundāl, avaṭṛai-p eṇṇamuṃ, aḍaṅgi-viḍum, vicāraṇaiyiṇāl-ē-y-ē. That means, if other thoughts rise, without trying to complete them, it is necessary to investigate to whom they have appeared. Literally, actually, it doesn't even mean to whom they've appeared, to whom they have come into existence, is the actual meaning. The verb undahum means to come into existence. So when he says, yarakku-undayana, to whom have they come into existence, is what it literally means. In many translations, this is translated as, it's necessary, or we should ask to whom they have appeared. That is not what Bhagavan means here. The verb he uses is vicārika. Vichari is a Tamil form of the Sanskrit verb vichar, which means to investigate. It has other meanings, but the central meaning is investigate, and that's the meaning in this context. So when we investigate who am I, it's sometimes in the preliminary stages, when we notice our attention has gone out, oh, who's aware of this? Or to whom has this phenomena appeared? To whom has this thought appeared? Asking that question may be an aid to turn our mind within. But that's not what Bhagavan means by investigating to whom. By investigating to whom, he means we have to turn our attention away from whatever thought has appeared, back towards ourselves. And when he talks about thought, in a few paragraphs earlier, he said, the world is nothing but thought. So what Bhagavan means by thought is any type of phenomena, whether our perceptions, all these sights, sounds, tastes, and other sensory perceptions, or any thought, feeling, anything, all Bhagavan takes them all as thought. So Bhagavan's using the term thought in the sense of mental phenomena of any kind whatsoever, and he says all phenomena, what appear to us to be physical phenomena, chairs and tables and pictures and walls and windows, all these, according to Bhagavan, are just mental phenomena. Just like in a dream we see a world just like this, when we wake up we know it was all our own, it was a fabrication of our mind, our own imagination produced all that. Bhagavan says all this world is exactly like that, it's all a fabrication of our own mind. So when he's talking about when other thoughts arise, he means when any phenomena appears, when we become aware of any phenomena, we should turn our attention back towards ourselves. To whom has this phenomena appeared? To whom has it come into existence? It's quite significant that Bhagavan uses the verb come into existence rather than appear here, because according to Bhagavan, phenomena don't exist independent of the mind. So the thoughts come into existence only it's the mind, but in an earlier paragraph, in the 4th paragraph, he said the mind causes all thoughts to appear. So it's the mind that produces all these phenomena. They're brought into existence by the mind. This world doesn't exist independent of our perception of it. That's one of the central principles of Bhagavan's teachings. So whatever may appear, whatever may come into existence in our outward-facing awareness, we have to turn our attention back towards ourselves. That's the import of that sentence. And then in the next sentence he says, eṛundāl eṛnnum. That literally means, however many thoughts rise, what? Enna literally means what, but it's often used in Tamil in the sense of, what does it matter? That's the sense in which it's used here. So, however many thoughts arise, what does it matter? If we are intent upon turning our attention back towards ourselves, it doesn't matter how many thoughts arise. Any thought that arises, can any phenomena appear without ourself being there to be aware of it? So everything that appears should remind us, this appears because I'm aware of it. So who am I? We should, if we are so intent upon turning our attention back towards ourselves, the appearance of phenomena doesn't matter at all, because any phenomena will just remind us to turn our attention back towards ourselves. That's what he implies in the next sentence, which is Jagrateai ovo eṇṇamum kiḷambum-pōdē adu yaraku undayatru endru vicāraṇaiyiṇāl enakendru tōndrum. That means, as soon as each thought appears, if one vigilantly investigates to whom it has appeared, again, literally, to whom it has come into existence, it will be clear to me. Enakendru tōndrum literally means it will appear to me. It will appear, endru here can be taken as, endru is what is called a quotative participle. It's like iti in Sanskrit, for those who know Sanskrit. Sometimes we can translate it in English as inverted commas, or sometimes we can translate it as that. It will be clear that it is to me. It's the sense in which it's used. The very first word of the verse is jagrateai. That means vigilantly. Jagram is the state of the waking state, the state of alertness. So jagrateai means very vigilantly, with great attentively, we have to investigate ourselves. Obvoro eṇṇum means each thought. Obvoro means literally means it's difficult to say, but it's used in the sense of each, but it's a very sort of emphatic each. It's using each in a very, whatever thought it may be, each thought we have to turn our attention back towards ourselves. So again, what he's saying in this sentence is similar to what he said in the previous but one sentence, but this is to emphasize what he said in the intermediary sentence. However many thoughts rise, what does it matter? Of course it matters if we allow our mind to go out after the thoughts. We suffer by going out after thoughts, but if we are intent upon turning our attention within, it doesn't matter how many thoughts arise. Whatever thought it may be, as soon as it appears, we have to turn our attention back towards ourselves. Bhagavan said that metaphorically we have to investigate to whom it has appeared, to whom it has come into existence, and when we investigate thus, it will be clear to me. So in other words, what he's describing metaphorically here is the turning of our attention back towards ourselves. Other thoughts can appear only when our attention turns outwards. As soon as we become aware of any other thought, that should remind us to turn our attention back towards ourselves. And then in the next sentence he says, Nāṉ Ār indru vicāritāl, maṇam taṇ piṟappiḍattiṟku-t tirumbi-viḍum. That means if one investigates who am I, the mind will return to its birthplace or will turn back to its birthplace. Because in some translations, the verb vichari is translated as ask, it's translated that you, the previous sentence is translated sometimes as soon as each thought appears, one should ask to whom it has appeared. And then this sentence is translated, if one then asks, who am I? That is not the sense, it's not a two-step process. If at all there's any difference between asking to who, between investigating to whom and investigating who am I, they're both pointing in the same direction. We could say that the previous sentence is referring to a turning back of our attention. When we investigate to whom it has occurred, there's something other than ourselves that we're aware of. So turning our attention back towards ourselves is described by Bhagavan as investigating to whom it has appeared. What he refers to here as investigating who am I is keeping our attention. First we have to turn our attention back towards ourselves, then we have to keep our attention fixed on ourselves. So it's not a two-stage process, but you could, if we want to distinguish investigating to whom and investigating who am I, the difference is investigating to whom in this context signifies the turning of our attention, and the investigating who am I signifies keeping our attention fixed on ourselves. So if we investigate who am I, the mind will return to its birthplace. The noun he uses for birthplace, it is very literally birthplace. Piṛappu means birth, idam means place. Piṛappiḍum means birthplace. The birthplace of the mind obviously isn't a place in a physical sense. The birthplace of the mind is the source from which we arose. That's our own real nature, is what Bhagavan refers to here as the piṛappiḍum, the birthplace of the mind. And the verb tirumbi-viḍum, that can mean it turns back to, so it can refer to the turning of our attention, but in this context, because the previous sentence already implies that the attention is turned back, so in this context, tirumbi-viḍum, rather than meaning turn back, it returns to, it goes back to. So it's not the turning which is important here, it's the returning, the going back towards our birthplace. So when our attention is facing outwards, the mind goes outwards. When our attention faces inward, the mind goes inwards. It returns to its birthplace. These are very, very, though Bhagavan uses very simple words, they're very, very subtle clues he's giving us here. He's describing the process of self-investigation in a very, very, in a very subtle and nuanced manner, but also very clearly, if we understand that because the practice cannot adequately be expressed in words, which is why Bhagavan often used simple words metaphorically. Because that's the best way of pointing towards that. So if we understand that the terms he's using metaphorically, but what he's talking about is turning our attention away from other things back towards ourselves, then this is a very clear and deep description of this practice. Then in the next sentence he says, this is actually, he divides this from a previous sentence by a semicolon to show that it's a continuation of the same idea. That if one investigates who am I, the mind will return to its birthplace, semicolon. The thought that has arisen will also subside. That implies if we investigate who am I, not only will the mind return to its birthplace, it will also, the thought that had arisen will also subside. eṛundāl aḍaṅgi-viḍum. The reason the thought that had arisen will subside or will cease is thoughts can appear only when we attend to them. If we turn our attention back towards ourselves, the thought is deprived of our attention, and therefore it disappears. So it's by turning our attention back towards ourselves, the mind or ego returns to its source, and all other thoughts cease or disappear. Then in the next sentence, which is I've taken as it's a good. But if this paragraph is to be split in two, this is a good point to split, because this is sort of conclusion of the first half of the paragraph. But it's the same idea but continues in the second half, but we'll see that later. In this sentence he says, ippaḍi paṛaga maṉattiṟku-t piṟappiḍattiṟku-t taḍi-pōl y-adhikarikkiṉḍṛadu. That literally means when one practices and practices in this manner, for the mind, the power to stand firmly established in its birthplace increases. There are some people nowadays who I mean, so many people claim to be followers of Bhagavan, or claim to be inspired by Bhagavan or something, and they begin to give their own version of his teachings. They set themselves up as gurus or whatever. A lot of these gurus nowadays say it's not a matter of practice, you just have to see that you are that. But according to Bhagavan, practice is absolutely essential. Bhagavan sometimes said, attaining this is not, again, he's talking metaphorically, it's not your birthright. Those who have attained it are those who have worked for it. So this repeated, persistent practice is absolutely necessary. So he says here, the verb paṛaga means to practice. So if we, it means it's the infinitive form of the verb parahu, which is to practice, but the infinitive is used here in the sense of when. When one thus practices and practices, or when one practices and practices in this manner, so it's necessary, however many times our attention goes out towards other things, we have to constantly be turning it back towards ourselves and trying to keep our attention fixed on ourselves. By practicing and practicing in this manner, for the mind, the power to stand firmly established in its birthplace increases. So in order to abide firmly in ourselves, we have to constantly practice turning our attention back towards ourselves whenever we notice it slip away towards other things. So practice is, according to Bhagavan, practice is absolutely essential. That is the only way to achieve what we want to achieve, which is the dissolution of the mind, the destruction of the mind. And why he says here, the power of the mind to stand firmly established in its birthplace increases. That obviously implies the power that we have now is deficient, which I think we will all agree. If we try to put this into practice, we keep on finding our attention gets dragged outwards and outwards because we lack that power. What is the power that is required to abide firmly in our source? Is the power of love. Without great love, it's impossible to follow this path. Sometimes people think, oh, Bhagavan's path is the dry path of jnana. I prefer the path of bhakti. That's more, it's got more feeling to it. Bhagavan's so-called dry path of jnana is absolutely impossible without love. In fact, it is the pinnacle of the bhakti marga, is vichara marga. Ultimately, Bhakti Marga, we're seeking to develop love for God in order to know God as He is, but we are always, in all dualistic practices, we are separate, God is separate. Bhagavan says in Upadesha Undiyā, in the 8th verse of Upadesha Undiyā, what is the best type of meditation, more than Anyabhava, taking God to be something other than ourselves, and Anyabhava, meditating on God as oneself. In other words, meditating on oneself alone, knowing that it is God who shines in us as I, He is I, with that conviction that God is what is shining in us as I, attending to oneself, is, Bhagavan says in verse 8 of Upadesha Undiyā, anatinam uttamam, it's the best of all, it's the highest of all, it's the ultimate spiritual practice. So of all types of spiritual practice, that is the best. That he's describing the same thing, in other words, he's describing the same thing that he's describing here. So this is the pinnacle of the path of bhakti. So without love, we cannot we cannot even begin to follow this path. And without persistent love, we cannot reach the goal. As we practice and practice and practice, that power of love, the love just to be aware of ourselves, not to be aware of anything else, that will increase. That is what Bhagavan describes here as the tāṉ piṛappiḍattiṟku-t tangi nikkum shakti, the power to stand, to remain firmly established in its birthplace, in one's own birthplace. That's the birthplace of the mind, which is our real nature. That place to which we return every night when we go to sleep. But when we go to sleep just out of exhaustion. So the mind rises again because the mind hasn't been destroyed. But in order to destroy the mind so that we can sleep eternally, vichara is the only way, as he says in the very first sentence of this paragraph. So I think that's enough for now, and we can do a second half, which is a continuation of the same idea, but we can continue. This is a convenient place to break it. We can continue that later.
Could you explain the concept of birthplace? What exactly do you mean by birthplace, and how does one identify it?
It's the place from which we originate.
How does one?
It's not literally a place, but from where do we originate? When you wake up from sleep, where do you come from? When you subside in sleep, where do you go? That place from which we rise and into which we subside, it's not obviously not a physical place, but that metaphorical place is what? What is our real nature? Our real nature is pure self-awareness. That self-awareness is the base of all our experience. We're never aware of anything else without being aware of ourselves. Even when we're not aware of anything else, we are still aware of ourselves. So self-awareness, the basic awareness I am, that is what underlies all three states. That's what is common to all three states. In sleep, only that pure self-awareness remains. In waking and dream, awareness of other things appears. That which is aware of other things is the ego. From where does that ego come? It comes only from the basic self-awareness. In fact, the ego is nothing but a mixture of that basic self-awareness and awareness of other things.
But you think self-awareness then is the same as the feeling of I-ness, I am?
Yes, yes.
But because one is not aware of self-aware when he is asleep.
Yes, we are. When you wake up, don't you say, I slept well? How can you say you slept if you weren't aware of yourself? Supposing sleep was a state of absolutely no awareness, we would not be aware of any gap between the ending of one waking state or dream and the beginning of the next such state. So we would be only aware of two states, but we're clearly aware of three states. We are aware there are two states where we experience in which we're aware of phenomena, and one state we experience in which we're not aware of any phenomena. So the self-awareness is common to all these states. What is the difference is, in waking and dream, we are aware of phenomena. In sleep, we are aware of no phenomena. Because people associate awareness with being aware of phenomena, they say, oh, in sleep I wasn't aware of anything. It's true we weren't aware of anything, but we were still aware. We were aware of nothing, if you want to say it in that way, but that nothing that we were aware of, that is what we are. It's not actually nothing, it's the only real thing. That's ourself.
How do we recognize that we are in birthplace? Is it by experience?
No, the ego, when we rise as ego, we are never actually away from birthplace. But metaphorically speaking, when we rise as ego, we come out of our birthplace. We come out of our source. So long as we are aware of anything other than ourselves, we have, metaphorically speaking, come out of our source. When we are aware of nothing other than ourselves, then we have returned to our source, our birthplace. So the state in which we are not aware of anything other than ourselves, that is the state of being in our birthplace. That is what we go into that state due to tiredness in sleep. But when the reason the mind doesn't get destroyed when we go to sleep, in sleep the mind subsides due to exhaustion. As a result of the subsidence of the mind, what remains is pure self-awareness. What we are trying to achieve in the waking state or dream state, when we practice vichara, we are trying to be aware of that pure self-awareness. The mind is trying to be aware of that pure self-awareness. So the manonasa, the destruction of the mind, is when the mind subsides as a result of being aware of the pure self-awareness. Sleep, or any state of manolaya, is when pure self-awareness is experienced as a result of the mind subsiding. So it's a matter of cart and horse. If the cart goes first, the cart is the subsidence of the mind, we end up in manolaya. If the horse goes first, that is, if we become aware of the pure self-awareness, in other words, if we become aware of ourselves without being aware of anything else, that's the horse going first, then the cart will be destroyed forever. The cart is the mind. So there's the simple answer to your question, how do we recognize it? There is no one there to recognize it. When there is no one there to recognize it, then you're in that state. Okay. But when we say no one, that means the ego is not there, but what is ever existing, what is ever aware of itself, call it Brahman or Atma-swarupam or pure self-awareness, whatever we want to call it, that which is real is always as it is. That is why Bhagavan said there's nothing actually to be achieved, because we are already that. But we seem to have a problem, but we've now risen as ego or mind. The dissolution of the ego or mind, from the perspective of the ego, that is the achievement of jnana. But actually it's nothing achieved because it's what is already there. So Bhagavan said there's nothing to be gained. All that is required is to remove everything. When everything is removed, when everything is lost, what remains, that is the state of jnana. So it's not a state of attainment, it's a state of loss. But metaphorically we talk of it as a state of attainment, because from the perspective of the ego it seems to be a state of attainment.
So when a beginner like me.
Yeah, so we are all beginners.
So
where did you begin from? Where you began from, that is your piṛappiḍum, that is your birthplace.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got to find out, where we began.
Yeah. So maybe I could say, like we lost it, no, we've got to find ourselves. Okay.
Yes.
So in the process, like when we close our eyes and then we start thinking, who am I? And then when we try to practice it.
Yeah.
So I read some place where Bhagavan said it will take you to your heart, where the place of birth.
Yes.
So should we really focus on some physical place, or I mean, how do we get that?
Bhagavan said so many times, heart is not physical. Heart is a name for our real nature. What we actually are, the pure self-awareness, that is heart. What he refers to in this paragraph as piṛappiḍum, birthplace of the mind, that is the heart. Okay. It's not for people who weren't ready to understand things subtly, who insisted on, Bhagavan, if you call it the heart, then where in the body is it? Bhagavan said 2 digits to the right from the center of the chest. That is true only relative to the body. But when does the body come into existence? The body comes into existence along with the mind. So how can the mind come from the body, from any place in the body? But there's no body without the mind, without the ego. So the real heart is not any physical place. It is the metaphorical place, what Bhagavan calls the birthplace, the source, the origin of the mind, which is the pure self-awareness. And you said, are we closing eyes and thinking, who am I, or asking, who am I? It's not a matter of thinking or asking, who am I? What Bhagavan says is, Nāṉ Ār, what's it? Okay, here he says, Yāraku undrai endru vicārika vendum. In other places he says, Nāṉ Ār endru vicārika vendum. So, what is meant by Nāṉ Ār endru vicārika vendum, investigating who am I, it doesn't mean asking the question, who am I? If I give you this book and ask you to investigate what's written in it, you don't sit there and think, what is written in this book, what is written in this book? No, you open it and see. So also to investigate what we are so far, we have to look inside ourselves to see ourselves. So the investigation is only by attention. So when Bhagavan says, but you'll see in Tamil, Bhagavan hasn't used any inverted commas there. He says, Nāṉ Ār endru vicārika vendum. That means investigate what I am, who am I. But in English it tends to be, people tend to put it in inverted commas with a question mark. That makes it seem to be a question, but it's not. It's like if I ask you, can you see what the time is? We don't put, can you see, inverted commas, what the time is, question mark, inverted commas. No, it's because you're not asking I'm not asking you to ask the question what the time is. I'm asking you to look at your watch and tell me what the time is. So what Bhagavan says is we should investigate who am I. That's not asking the question, who am I, but that's looking within ourselves to see what we actually are.
So can you a little bit elaborate on how do you investigate? Sorry, I mean investigate in the sense like I mean.
I cannot elaborate. if I elaborate, it'll not be that, because it's so simple. All it is. To put it, for me, the easiest way of explaining it is: are you not self-aware? You're aware. I am, aren't you? You're aware that you're here. You're sitting here. We're all self-aware. But generally, we are more interested in other things, aren't we? Because there's so many interesting things in this world to be aware of. So we're more interested in the things of the world than we are in our own basic self-awareness. But the basic self-awareness is always there in the background. It's like the screen in the cinema. There's no picture without the screen. So also there's no awareness of phenomena without that basic self-awareness, but we overlook it. That overlooking of the basic self-awareness is what is called in Sanskrit pramada. That's negligence, self-negligence. That is the root problem. The self-awareness is always there, we neglect it. So instead of being negligently self-aware as we usually are, we're trying to be attentively self-aware. So self-awareness is not an object that we attend to. If I asked you to attend to this book, it's an object, it's something, we're all familiar with objective attention, but this is very, very subtle. This is turning our attention, the focus of our awareness, back on ourselves, back on the basic self-awareness. That is not an object. We're not attending to any object. We are being self-attentive, or being attentively self-aware. That's all there is to it. And if we try and Bhagavan has expressed it in so many ways, but it's all, whatever way we express it is ultimately metaphorical because it's beyond words. Sometimes when people ask Bhagavan, how to practice it, Bhagavan, it's recorded in one place, in Mahayoga, and I think also in talks, Bhagavan once said, the way need not and cannot be shown by another. You need to be shown the way inside your own home. We have to find our way inside. It's only, this is a self-revealing path. We cannot understand how to practice it without trying to practice it. The more we practice it, the more clear the practice will become. But none of us here, not one single person here, has yet experienced perfect self-attentiveness. Because if we had experienced perfect self-attentiveness, that would be the end of the story. So we're all still practicing, we're all still trying to be self-attentive, but we are never completely withdrawing our attention from all other things. In other words, to put it again metaphorically, instead of facing outwards, we're trying to turn our attention back towards ourselves, turning 180 degrees. But none of us has yet managed to turn 180 degrees. We may have turned 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 130 degrees, whatever. But the ego isn't dissolved until we turn that, isn't permanently destroyed, until we turn that full 180 degrees. That means our attention has to be completely withdrawn from all other things by being focused on ourselves. That's obviously a very, very subtle thing. In order to achieve that, our power of attention has to be greatly refined, has to become very, very subtle. How to make it refined and subtle? Ippaḍi-p, by practicing and practicing in this way. Ippaḍi-p maṉattiṟku-t piṟappiḍattiṟku taḍi nikkum shakti aḍhikarikkiṉḍṛadu. So by practicing and practicing in this way, for the mind, the power to stand firmly in its source increases. So we have to practice. We understand the practice to the extent that we have practiced. As we practice more and more, our understanding will become more and more subtle. But we won't be able to express it better in words, because words cannot express this. So the guidance is there, but the guidance is, Bhagavan's words guide us as much as can be from outside. But the real guidance, Bhagavan's real guidance, is always shining in our heart. We have to turn within. That is Bhagavan's silent teaching. His silent teaching is always going on in our heart. We are always ignoring it because we are more interested in other things. So if we want to listen to his silent teaching, we have to turn our attention within, and he will reveal everything to us. Everything that needs to be revealed, which is only ourselves. Nothing else needs to be known.
From another point of view, put it in another words, can I say that when I practice self-inquiry, or when I investigate myself, I reject everything that comes into my mind. I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, I'm not my this, that, and the other.
Yes.
So when everything is discarded, what remains? Ultimate presence.
Yes.
That is you.
Yes. Yes.
Consciousness.
But, yes.
Consciousness.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now,
but how to discard everything?
Exactly. How to discard is investigation.
Yes, exactly.
Investigation
Exactly.
is, I'm not my body because the body is separate from me. I'm not my mind because I say it's my mind. I'm separate from my mind. You see,
yes.
in that process,
Yes, but
you come to the conclusion.
Then you
come to the conclusion that I'm nothing.
Yes.
All that I am is what remains after everything has been discarded.
Yeah.
And that is I amness.
Yes. Yes.
That is presence.
Yes.
That is beingness. I exist.
Yes.
So that is what we all are, and that is the nearest to consciousness. Because you can never really be conscious yourself, because you will not be there, as you said.
Yes, we dissolve into that.
The nearest to consciousness is being awareness that I am. So can you say that if I meditate on I am, just and discard I am is also a thought, but whatever thought comes, I discard it, all the paths, all the adjuncts, I discard all of them and concentrate only on I am. Just think of I am, that I exist.
Yes.
And if I continue doing that, gradually, even that will disappear. And gradually, then you reach self-realization.
Yeah.
So this is only a step.
Yeah.
This is only a step in which you are meditating on I amness. Who am I? Same as meditating on I.
Yes.
You do that, continue doing that, then you will achieve some kind of stillness of mind. You'll be without any thought. You'll be still. And that, in my view, is the nearest to self-realization. Because you can never be in that process. Suddenly you'll wake up and see that all this is impermanent, that I don't exist, that I have no birth, I have no death, I am consciousness, I am awareness, I am that.
Yes.
You see, that realization will come through only in the process of investigation.
Yes, yes.
So these are various steps which one has to go through.
Yes. Generally, I think what you're saying is correct, but it needs a little bit of refinement. Firstly, the analysis, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, all these, this is manana. This is not the actual practice. This is analysis. That's not the investigation. That's not what Bhagavan means by that. Is the manana stage. When we are thinking deeply. We've been told now you are that. You are not this body. You are not this mind. Then why am I not this body? We think about it rationally, and then we understand. I'm aware of myself, whether I'm aware of this body or not. Therefore, this body cannot be what I actually am. So in that way, there's an intellectual self-analysis. That is preliminary. That is necessary in order to understand, but attending to any phenomena, whether body or mind or whatever, is not attending to myself. That is the preparation, but the actual practice is when we turn our attention back towards ourselves. How we discard the body and mind? By attending only to ourselves. The more we focus our attention on ourselves, the more body, mind and everything else recedes into the background. You said when you meditate on I am, even I am goes. What the word I am means, it denotes the existence of ourself. Our existence never goes. In fact, it explicitly denotes our existence, but our existence is never separate from our awareness. When we say I am, we are implying two things. Firstly, we're stating explicitly I exist, but we're implying something. I'm aware that I exist. Because a chair cannot say I am. And anything that is not aware cannot say I am. So when we say I am, we are implying our existence and our awareness. That never goes. What goes, now we are experiencing that I am mixed with upadis, as I am this body. That mixed feeling, that mixed awareness, I am this body, is what is called ego or chit jadagranti. That goes, but the I am remains. I am can never, I am is our basic self-awareness. That can never vanish, can never cease to exist. That is the one basic reality.
No, but when one achieves self-realization,
yes,
there is nothing. Not even I am is not there, because I am again It's a concept. And
no, it's not a concept.
In the sense that when I say I am, there is knower, the person who is asking the question, I am, and the fact that I am recognizing the I am. These are, again, I am is a thought. I am is, as far as I am concerned, I am is a thought. There are two people, or three people. The person who is asking the question, what he is asking, and the process of thinking. So all these are there in the I amness also. So long as I am aware that I am, I am. What I am saying is when I am saying that I am, then I am not.
Yes. When we're saying that I am, when we're thinking I am, yes. So, but when we say I am, when we think I am, what do those words I am refer to? It refers to our fundamental self-awareness. That fundamental self-awareness is Brahman. That is why it is said, I am Brahman. For the ego, for the mind, that's just a concept, it's just a thought. But it is pointing towards our basic self-awareness. That basic self-awareness is what is denoted by the words I am. Of course, the words I am won't be there in the real state, and the thought I am won't be. But what is denoted by those words, what those words refer to, Bhagavan says in one verse in Upadesha Undiyā, Nāṇ in verse 19, he explains about the practice of investigation. But when we investigate ourselves, the ego will, the ego will die. And then in verse 20 he says, where this I dies, our real nature will shine forth as I am I. That is the infinite whole. And then in verse 21 he says, Nāṇ Ār that is always the true import of the word I. So what the word I denotes, what the word I refers to, is that pure self-awareness. So that is, when Bhagavan talks about I am, he's referring to that pure self-awareness. When he talks about ego, he describes it as a mixed awareness, I am this body. So I am, I'm not talking about the words I am, I'm talking about what the words I am refer to. That is Atma-swarupa, that is our real nature, that is the pure self-awareness. That is what exists even in sleep. Are you not aware that last night were you not in sleep? Yes, we all know we were in a state called sleep. That which is in the state called sleep, that what remains in sleep. Michael isn't there in sleep, my mind isn't there in sleep, my ego isn't there in sleep, but I am there in sleep. So that I am, what I am on its own refers to, is that basic self-awareness. There's a difference between when we say, I am this. Am is there, a verb that is denoting our identity. I equals this. But when we say I am alone, am is not denoting identity, it's denoting existence. So that's why Bhagavan was very, very careful in his use of words. When he used the term I am on its own, irikarain, he was referring to our real nature. When he's referring to ego, he refers to it as I am this body. In order to make that distinction clear. So whenever Bhagavan uses the term I am on its own, he's referring to our real nature. What dissolves in the state of jnana is not I am, but I am this, I am that, I am this body. I am plus anything. That's why Bhagavan said our real identity is not this or that, our real identity is only I. That's why he uses this term in verse 20 and in so many other places. Nāṇ Nāṇ, aham aham, I am I. That if we want to identify ourselves with anything, if we want to point out anything as our identity, it can't be anything other than ourselves. So I am only I. So Bhagavan's use of words, Bhagavan was very, very careful in the words he used. He's very careful and very precise. Though he uses, I mean, of course words have limitation, but within the limitation of words, Bhagavan chose his words very, very carefully. I am is the one thing that can never go. The thought I am, the words I am will go, of course, but what the word denotes, that is our basic self-awareness. That is the ultimate reality. That is the meaning of the Mahavakya. You are that, aham brahmasmi, I am Atman Brahman, prajnanam Brahman. Prajnanam, the pure awareness, that basic awareness, that is what is I am. That is what the words I am denote. Is that clear? Sorry, two hands went up.
In this process of investigation,
yes,
I don't come further. I stop on the point to me.
Yes.
Yes, and if I want to go further, there's
no
time and
there's nowhere further to go. Our goal is ourself. So when Bhagavan describing this as a process, now our attention is facing outwards. But whatever we may be aware of, who is aware of it? To whom does it appear? To me. So we turn our attention back towards I. Once our attention is turned back towards I, there's nowhere else to go, nowhere further to go. But in practice, we haven't yet turned our attention the full 180 degrees. So by practicing more and more, our power of attention is refined, is made more and more subtle, and we're able to go deeper and deeper into ourselves. Again, deeper and deeper into ourselves is metaphorical, because where are we except ourselves? But because we have to express it in words, we have to go deeper and deeper into ourselves. We have to, that turn has to be not just 150 degrees, it has to be a full 180 degrees. What that means in practice, we're not actually turning, there's nowhere to turn because we're already there. It's metaphorical. We have to withdraw our attention from other things. So long as there's the slightest awareness of anything other than ourselves, we haven't yet turned that full 180 degrees. But once you reach me, once you've caught hold of that me, once you're beginning to attend to yourself, you may only have turned 40 degrees or 50 degrees or whatever. It doesn't matter, that's a start. Even 1 or 2 degrees is a start. Instead of letting all our attention go out on other things, we're beginning to turn our attention back towards ourselves. Then we have to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. That is the only way. So they're not multiple stages. There's nowhere to progress to. The place we're aiming for is here and now, what we ourselves actually are. So though metaphorically we say it's a journey in the sense that we are weakening our taste to go outwards and increasing our taste to go inwards. In that sense it's a journey. But when we reach our destination, we'll find it's where we've always been, because it's where we are here and now.
I only can find that I'm not in the real destination when I don't come further.
Yes. Well, we are never not in the real destination. We're always there, but we seem to be not there because we're aware of other things. So the whole process is slowly withdrawing our attention from other things, turning our attention back towards ourselves, and thereby weakening our taste, our liking to go out to experience other things. So the whole, we can see what we are here and now if we want to. None of us here, not one single person, yet wants that enough. Bhagavan once said, everyone who comes here says they come only for mukti, liberation. But if I show even a small sample of mukti, all the crows will fly away and I'll be left sitting here alone. Because the honest truth is, none of us yet want it enough. We do want it, we've got a little interest in it, but how many other interests we've got, how many other desires we've got, how many other things we care about, so many things in this world. So our love for this has to be all-consuming. That all-consuming love, the way to cultivate that all-consuming love is by practicing and practicing and practicing, trying to turn our attention back towards ourselves. It's very, very simple. But it requires great perseverance. It requires great love. To cultivate, the only way to cultivate love is by love. So we have to just go on and on and on in this practicing and practicing and practicing. We will reach there. We're already there, but metaphorically we will reach there. So,
the pure state of self-awareness is simply the space, the gap between thoughts. And in order to reach that, in order to break the stream of thought, one can say, I, and then the stream of thought is broken, and one is in the space, the gap again.
So long as we're saying I, the word I is a thought. But by repeating that word, we are reminding ourselves of our self-awareness. It can be an aid to turn our attention back towards the self-awareness.
Yes.
When you say the gap between thoughts, what Bhagavan has explained is actually there's only at one time, there's only the ego and one other thought. The ego is rising and subsiding along with the thoughts, but thoughts happen in such rapid succession, just like when a picture is projected, or a cinema picture is projected on the wall, it appears to be a moving picture, though it's actually some 25 or 30 still frames projected on there. Because it's so fast, it appears to us to be a continuously moving picture. So also, the rate at which the ego and other thoughts rise and subside is so fast, we don't notice the gap between them. In order to notice that gap, we have to focus our attention very, very keenly on ourselves. So the ego subsides more and more and more. Thereby, our attention, our power of discernment will become more and more refined. When we are able to experience, to perceive that gap between two thoughts, we will be lost there. No thought will rise again.
But we do experience a temporary state of pure self-awareness. I mean, we do get glimpses, which is why we
well, glimpses in the sense, we're always aware, it's always there, it's always shining. We get glimpses, so-called, to the extent we attend to it. But we need to attend to it 100%. In other words, we need to withdraw our attention entirely from other things. That we are not yet able to do, because we still have those desires and attachments. So by practicing and practicing and practicing, trying to focus our attention more and more on ourself, on our pure self-awareness, on our basic self-awareness, our fundamental self-awareness, our attention becomes more and more refined. And eventually, we will be able to be aware of the self-awareness alone. And thereby the mind will be dissolved.
That is the ultimate state.
That is the ultimate state.
You said something a short while ago to the effect that nobody can, but ourselves can actually discover who you really are.
No.
I understand that, but amongst those, or amongst some of those who were blessed to be in his presence, Sri Ramana's presence,
yes,
he did help them temporarily, didn't he, by looking at them, because many or quite a number of...
He hasn't helped anyone temporarily. He's helping everyone permanently.
Right. But what I meant was that he'd helped them on the path by enabling them to become aware simply because of his gaze.
Yes.
I mean, if you read a number of people that were alive or were there,
yes,
and alive and in his presence, they refer to him.
Yes, but where is the presence of Bhagavan? The presence of Bhagavan is here and now. The presence of Bhagavan is always shining in our heart. So long as, Sadhuam used to say, so long as Bhagavan was in the physical form, it was a type of subtle maya over our eyes. Sadhuam was a poet. He used to compose songs. And he would feel satisfied when he goes and he sings his songs in front of Bhagavan. And he would then reflect upon that satisfaction that he feels. And then he would think to himself, how foolish I am. I think that Bhagavan hears my song only when I sing in his presence. But from where is this song coming, if not from Bhagavan? So Bhagavan is the source from which the song came. It is our ignorance, because we take ourselves to be the body, we take this body to be Bhagavan. So this isn't to say that those who were in Bhagavan's physical presence, they were blessed. But we have to go beyond the mere physical presence. We have to discover the real presence of Bhagavan. That's why I've often told this story, but it's a very, very important story. I mean, it's a very illustrative story of Janaki Mata. Once when she came to Bhagavan, she saw him returning from Gosala, the cowshed. And there weren't many people around. She thought this is a very good opportunity. So she approached him, she fell at his feet and held his feet. And Bhagavan looked down at her and said, what are you doing? She said, I'm holding the feet of my Sadguru. Bhagavan said, these are not the feet of your Guru. This is a perishable body. If this body were your Guru, if these feet were the feet of your Guru, they would be of no use to you, because they're perishable, they're going to go away. The real feet of your Guru is what is shining in you as I. Grasp those feet. Only those feet will save you.
Well, that's why presumably people like he sent, Bhagavan sent Annamalai Swami away, because he was becoming too devoted. Maybe. I mean, we can't say about individuals' experience. Just by reading.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, we don't know. I mean, how Bhagavan's grace works, we can't know. So people have written so many reminiscences about Bhagavan. They've recounted their experiences. That's all on the level of mind. But those who really discover Bhagavan deep in their heart, they keep quiet. There's a saying in Tamil, Kandava Vindile, Vindava Kandale. That means those who have seen do not say, those who say have not seen. So it is beyond expression, the real experience. So definitely people who were in Bhagavan's physical presence, it was a blessing. But we have to go beyond that, because we have to go beyond our own body. Our own identification with this body is the problem. Because of this identification with the body, we identify Bhagavan as this body. But Bhagavan said, no, who is Aruṇāchala Ramana? Aruṇāchala Ramana is not this body. Aruṇāchala Ramana is not this hill. Aruṇāchala Ramana is what is shining in you as I. Of course, the physical form of Bhagavan is very important, because without his physical form, that's what he referred to as the lion in the elephant's dream. He came to give us these teachings. He told us to turn within. That is very necessary. But we can't, if we continue clinging to the outward form instead of turning within. If you read Bhagavan's written Aksharamamlai, 108 verses about Aruṇāchala, it seems to be that he's attached to the outward form. But if we read the verses carefully, it's all about inward. It's all inward. Even the very first verse, Aruṇāchala mena ahame niṇaivu ahate varadupai Aruṇāchala. That has various levels of meaning. On one level it means you root out the egos of those who think of Aruṇāchala. But at the deeper level, you root out the egos of those who are aware that aṛa-natural is I. Or another meaning Murugan has explained for it is aṛa-natural mena. Instead of, it can also mean, what is aṛa-natural? Ahame, only I. Those who investigate thus, you root out their ego. So there's so many different levels at which we can interpret these things. But actually, of course, Bhagavan attached great importance to this physical form of the hill, because he knew what aṛa-natural really is, that which is shining in our heart as I. The two are not contradictory, they're complementary, but if we're to go deep, we don't stop with the outward form. We have to go in, what is the real meaning of aṛa-natural? What is the real form of Bhagavan? It is what is shining in us as I. Bhagavan himself says in one verse in Aksharam, tirumbi-viḍum dinamaha kankan terium endrane an aṛa-natural. Aṛa-natural, you said, turning within daily or repeatedly or permanently, see yourself with the inner eye. Terium, it will be known. So all this will be known. We'll know aṛa-natural, we'll know Bhagavan, only to the extent that we turn within. And then we won't see any difference in the inner and outer.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You said that the practice of, you said in effect that the practice of self-inquiry is no good unless it comes out of love.
I didn't say it's no good. I said it's impossible without love.
Right. Okay. this love, it's I find it a tricky thing. I mean, love is both a noun and a verb.
Yeah.
I mean, when you begin to love objects, things outside yourself.
No. No.
Well,
what is the first thing you love? The first thing we love.
My mother.
No. The first thing you love is yourself.
Okay.
So love begins from ourselves. We first love ourselves. And why we love other things? Because they contribute to our happiness. Right. Because our mother protects us when we're a small child, we love our mother.
Okay. Well, hang on. Well, all right. When you sort of become more than a baby, and when you begin to think about things like love, I mean, the way that I began to love was by loving other things in duality, which was a dualistic process. And then I gradually began to realize that everything is actually an expression of God, that everything that I was loving was God. Now, the thing is that you've got to sort of it seems to me that you have to sort of internalize this love, so that it's not a transitive thing, not a verb, but it's a state of being in love. So that's what it is. It's a state of being in love.
Yes. We love other things because they seem to contribute to our happiness. But whose happiness is it we're seeking? Ultimately, it's our own. It may seem in the view of others, but we're making great sacrifice. For instance, we love a person and that person is sick and we do everything we can for that person. It seems that we're making great sacrifice. We're sacrificing our love for the sake of this person we love so much. Yeah. But ultimately, for whom are we doing that? It's for our satisfaction, because we are happy. We cannot bear to see our loved ones suffering, so we will undergo any amount of suffering for their sake. But we think it's for their sake, but ultimately it's for our sake, because we can't be happy without seeing them happy.
Right.
So ultimately all love is for oneself. And Bhagavan says, what is the motivation for love? What is the cause for love? Is happiness. We are all seeking happiness because happiness is our real nature. So we love whatever makes us happy. We are perfectly happy in sleep. Therefore, happiness is our real nature. We all love to sleep. Now we may enthusiastically rise up in the morning and go out, but by the end of the day, there's nothing we love more. If we're exhausted, suppose you haven't slept for 2 days, even if you may be hungry also, but even if you're offered a tasty meal, you'll prefer to sleep. We all reach a point if we are tired enough, but there's nothing we desire more than to sleep. So we all have that love for sleep. Unfortunately, we also have love for so many other things, because we still are under the delusion that we're getting happiness from things outside. This practice of self-investigation is weaning our mind away from its love for other things by turning more and more within, by enjoying the... but when we turn within, we begin to taste the joy that is our real nature. So we persevere and we persevere, and slowly we weaken our desire or attachment for other things, and we increase our love for ourselves. But because we have so much desire and attachment for other things, without love, without genuine love, we cannot even begin to follow this path. That's why Bhagavan sometimes said, love is the beginning, the middle, and the end. There's no, and as I said earlier, this is people think of this as something other than the path of bhakti. This is actually the culmination, the final stage of the path of bhakti, is vichara.
And in fact, pure love carries you all the way eventually.
Yes. Well, pure love is what we're all seeking. Yes. Pure love is our real nature. The process is the purification of our love. In other words, the withdrawal of our love for other things and focusing it back on ourself. Not ourself as a person, but ourself as the fundamental self-awareness.
Pure love is pure oneness, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yes.
Pure being.
So long as you've got two, the love is imperfect. Because I love Bhagavan. But why I love Bhagavan? Because Bhagavan makes me happy. So though I love Bhagavan, it's my love is divided between Bhagavan and me. So long as there's that division, it's not pure love. If I want to have pure love for Bhagavan, I have to love Bhagavan as myself.
I know that's a funny thing. I mean, when I'm meditating in the morning, these are pictures from my home actually, and I sort of look at them, and I sometimes have to remind myself that this is not actually Bhagavan. It's me.
Yes. Well, yes, Bhagavan is you. Bhagavan is what is shining in your heart as I.
So it's self-love.
Yes.
That is what is meant by non-duality.
Yes. Loving anything else is duality. Attending to anything else is duality. Being aware of anything else is duality. But loving oneself, attending to oneself, being aware of oneself, that is non-duality.
Well, I mean, what's the role of disgust in this? So, I know that sounds a bit odd, but sometimes it feels like the love, it's not enough to turn all the way in. It's like, I don't know, I've been sort of weighing this up in the past couple of days. So, being completely disgusted by the lack of non-meeting of the needs of external things, that every time you go out to an external thing, it doesn't quite cut it.
Yeah.
Surely that has some role to play in the complete turning as well. The reality is love. When we rise as ego, our love, which is our real nature, takes the form of desire. And desire has two faces. Desire for things, or desire to avoid things. Disgust. So disgust is the other side of desire. But both desire and disgust, the real nature of them is love.
So it's by turning our attention back towards ourselves. Yes, we all feel, sometimes our mind is going out so enthusiastically towards other things, though we know we should be turning within, we sometimes feel disgusted with ourselves. It's all part of the process, but ultimately, the driving force has to be that pure love. Sometimes that love, during the process, it may sometimes manifest as disgust for all this outward going. But it's the love that we have to cling to. Because so long as we feel disgust, our attention is on something other than ourselves. What are we disgusted with? We're disgusted with other things. We're disgusted with our mind. We're disgusted with our ego. These are all anya. They're all other than ourselves. Cling to the real love, which is the pure I, shining in our heart. That is the way. Yes, but that's how the ego survives. It's only by clinging to I, by clinging to ourselves, that we can free ourselves both from desire and disgust. I'm not saying disgust doesn't have a role to play. That can also give us a push to turn within, but we shouldn't dwell on the disgust. We should dwell on ourselves.
Michael, what the word appetite for self-inquiry?
Could you?
Yes.
I wonder if you could just
more relevant appetite for, as opposed to love for.
Appetite, love, taste, whatever we call it. Yeah. Whatever word is meaningful to us. I mean, for each of us, different words will evoke different feelings, or will signify different things. So there's no one can prescribe it has to be this word or it has to be that word. The words are not important. What?
It's drawing to. That's what I'm getting.
Yes.
It's
Yes. But ultimately we need not just appetite. We need hunger. We need thirst for that. Yeah, it's the same word, but it's the intensity has to be so intense.
Yes. So it is the inclination to.
Yes.
That is important.
Yes.
As opposed to love. Love is universal. Love is I am love. Everybody's love.
Yes, but love. In duality, love has an object. We love things. It has an object in the sense that it's always directed towards something. We have to direct that love towards ourselves. But we shouldn't get too caught up with the words. I mean, the words.
Don't see it. It is an appetite for. It is a drawing to.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's quite difficult.
Yes.
To keep that, to keep focused on that.
Yes.
One tends to wonder.
Because we've got too much appetite for all these things.
Yes.
Too much taste for all these things.